to another episode of the REI Rocketfuel podcast. Today, we are joined by none other than one, the only, the infamous Tyson Bean. Tyson, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, being a man about town in the real estate world, to join me today for a short little session here talking about some real estate. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Emphasis on the infamous.
Infamous. Infamous. Infamous.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lod. I've been looking forward to this.
Been looking forward to it longer than you know. Talk to me about how you got started, why you got started, how you got started, why did you choose real estate? I guess just give us some background, give the audience some background on you and your journey and what brought you into real estate and what brought you here.
Yeah, for me, started about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago. I was looking for something that would offer me an opportunity to, or better yet, have my money work harder than I had to work for my money. And I found an avenue through real estate. You know, it was through real estate investing on the front end. And then that turned into a property management company. And then as a derivative of that, turned into me getting my real estate license just to help service my clients on a more conventional level. So real estate investing first, property management next, and the real estate brokerage third, and still run each of those today. Sweet.
So zooming in on your money working harder for you, you know, there's stocks and bonds and mutual funds and, you know, whole lot. I mean, there's a million different things. And now there's even more, you know, with crypto and everything. Why back then did you choose real estate, and why today are you still so heavy in real estate?
So for me, it was more of a natural fit. So I studied architecture in high school, and I had done construction, so I was pretty hands-on. And for me, it felt like a natural fit to get into something that involved houses.
Sure.
Found myself to be somewhat handy, so I didn't have to go out there and source a plumber or, you know, some of these other trades. I could do that myself and really get the value out of that equity that I was putting into it.
Sure. Now it was more of it sounds like it was more of a, you know, you only expect to make money in things that you understand, and you understood it. You understood how the pieces go together. You understood how to put the house together, you know, the leasing aspect, the sale aspect, the maintenance aspect. You kind of all encompassed that really on your own shoulders in the beginning.
Yeah, it really just was a natural fit for me.
Sweet.
And then to further a question you had asked, you know, starting with that, you know, why continue with that with there being other investment opportunities and avenues? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you reach a certain level, you know, in working shoulder to shoulder with you for years, I see you're constantly inundated with opportunities. There's no shortage of someone that wants to take you to lunch and wants to tell you about this cool new thing, and you see something online or you hear about it. You just being in that world, there's no shortage of opportunities that come your way. How do you decide what to take, and how do you decide to stay so disciplined into what you do? Or do you feel like you stay disciplined? Maybe that's just a bold assumption.
I feel like I'm a conservative investor. You know, I don't think the investment opportunities that I'm involved in are risky. My wife would say otherwise.
Sure.
But I know real estate. I'm comfortable with real estate. It's served me well over these last several years. I have diversified a little bit, but just more as experimental, if you will. Sure. But other than that, I think having something tangible such as real estate, for me, being able to drive down the street and seeing the project or the process, or, you know, collecting the rent, you know, that's something that's very tangible for me.
Sure. No, and I get that. I mean, obviously I've not been in it for 20 years, and I don't have as many opportunities thrown at me all the time that we don't source ourselves. We have no shortage of opportunities, but we're sourcing those, and they're 99.9% all predominantly based in residential real estate. So that's a really, really, really narrow niche for us. I really don't have really anything else outside of real estate that's, you know, substantial or even worth talking about. For to that point. You know, experimenting and going outside, for me, it's like taking money out of the ATM and going to the casino. It's like, this is just lost. What happens, happens. If it hits, it hits. But with respect to real estate, I can understand, you know, the tangibility, the knowledge of it, you know, the level of comfort after the proof of concept to others, to lenders, to, you know, contractors, and, you know, to yourself as the one that's on the hook for everything. I feel confident in taking on an insane amount of debt and hoping to take on more debt to buy more real estate. And I will sleep like a baby at night with millions of dollars in debt, because I know I made a sound decision. I understand the operational aspect behind real estate. And I'm just small scale compared to your holdings and your investment. So I have to imagine that you share the same sentiment, or you would have way bigger bags under your eyes than you do now.
Right. Well, I mean, and yeah, it's definitely the you know, leveraging your risk, OPM. You know, we talked about other people's money. So I don't think you can get to a level of scalability without being able to borrow against some sort of line of credit. You know, it's just doing it wisely, having that money make you money. Because there's bad debt, there's good debt, and in real estate, you know, I would say that most of that is good debt.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's been my biggest thing, you know, as opportunities come my way, you know, I don't see another avenue where I can leverage as strong and as much and as I can in real estate. And, you know, that leverage and OPM only allows you to scale quicker. So just zooming in and saying it a different way of what you just said exactly. That's, you know, from a beginner's perspective of mine, that's always been what I've looked about it, is like, I could go put this money into the stock market and I may have made more, I may have lost it all. Like, you know, it just really depends on the week and I have no control of it. But yeah, I own this much shares of XYZ company. And it doesn't mean anything. I'm not voting in the boardroom. I'm not tangibly, actively making operational decisions like I can in real estate. So I can understand the, you know, the leverage of your finances and the leverage of your time. I don't find a better fit for me personally than real estate.
Yeah. Well, and just like being able to go and find an asset in real estate, you couldn't get a lender to lend you on shares of stock.
Yeah.
And you're not going, you know, so you have to be 100% of your own cash into that is not going to, you know, or potentially is going to throw off distributions. But if you could borrow from a bank to buy a real estate asset that is in turn going to cash flow, so now you're making money on somebody else's money, you just couldn't do that with the stock.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when someone asks me like, oh, like, why don't you have stocks? Because I'm around a lot of younger people, early 20s, that are like, why aren't you in crypto? Why aren't you in this? You know, there's you know, apps like Robinhood and Webull and stuff like that online have just kind of leveled that playing field for people of my generation to, you know, kind of dabble in stocks and, you know, mutual funds and, you know, other hybrid type investments like that. And the other day, someone asked me about it, and I told them that if you go to Bank of America right now, they will not give you a loan to buy Bank of America stock. You can't get a loan to buy stock in the bank that's giving you the loan, but they'll give you a loan to buy real estate 7 days a week. They have no issue with that. And that's a really easy and clear, kind of whimsical picture to paint for people that are like, oh, I guess that's a good point. That's the easiest way for me that I've been able to explain leverage and other people's money to people that are newer or on the fence about real estate, or should I do stocks with this? Like, should I day trade? Should I buy crypto? I mean, ideally the answer is all of it, because you want to be diversified, but in the beginning you have and until you're Tyson Bean, you have a limited amount of capital. So you've got to figure out the best avenue for that until you reach a level where you have unlimited capital.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah, very well said.
thank you. What's the biggest, circling back to more you focused, your journey, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned in the last 20 some odd years investing in real estate?
So I was reflecting on my portfolio of assets here a couple of weeks ago, and I noticed that a lot of the acquisitions that I had made had been in that 09, 10, and 11 timeframe.
Sure.
Where I was buying one or two a year prior to, I think I may have bought 10 or 12 those years.
Sure.
So, hopefully that's some sort of forecasting in the future for us real estate investors, that if that cycle occurs again, that there's going to be more opportunities. I would say the only thing that I wished I would have done differently is acquired more.
Sure.
That would be the only thing, is you have to establish those lines of credits, those relationships with the lenders on the front end, and not wait for the opportunity to present itself, because once the opportunities present itself and you don't have your ducks in a row and everything lined up, then somebody else who has all of that teed up is going to be the one that's going to take down that opportunity.
Right. And that's when people are always like, oh, people got lucky back in, 9, 10, and 11, they bought houses for penny on the dollar. I'm like, regardless of the market shape that it's in, you still have to operate your business and put yourself in a position to take advantage of those opportunities. So people are like, oh, the people that don't run a tight ship now, or it's like when you start making more money, people are like, when I start making more money, I'll start saving. Like, I don't have enough money to save now. When I start making more, I'll just start to save. You're not just going to inherently just flip a switch and be like, okay, now I'm good at saving money because I make more money. In fact, the opposite. You're going to start spending it just as fast as it comes in. And I've been guilty of that. If you don't take the time to put your business, I say your business, whether you have 100 people or it's just you as an operator, if you're not taking the time to put yourself in a position to put your ducks in a row, to network with lenders and, get your financial statements over and get everything teed up, ready to go for when opportunities arise, you can strike quickly and know that you can sign these contracts with full confidence that you're going to close because you did the legwork. You've got all the infrastructure built behind the scenes. You're ready to roll. If you're not doing that now, you would have not done it 10, 12 years ago when you're like, people got lucky. No, the people that did prepared themselves to take advantage of the opportunities that were coming. The same people are going to do it now. The same people that wouldn't have done it back then or didn't do it back then aren't going to do it now.
Right. Yep.
And it's paralysis by analysis to an extent, I think. I mean, there's people that, they didn't want to buy 6 months ago, that rental property. They didn't want to buy the flip because they were like, I'm going to wait for the market to go down and then I'm going to buy it cheap. And now that it has started to correct and there's more opportunities, they're like, oh, I'm going to wait for it to get a little lower. Like, I'm going to buy it just the right time. I'm going to buy the dip. I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or Jimmy Buffett. You don't know. No one knows the day, the time, the hour that was the good, that was perfect. You can't, right. But you can't retroactively go back and buy the house. So, I mean, you with 20 some odd years of experience, I've talked to people that have been doing it for 40 years, 50 years, 10 years. Every single person I've talked to, the sentiment is the same. The only regret is that I wish I had started sooner and bought more. And that's kind of been the siren song for me for years. When I started as an agent, it was, okay, I want to talk to other top producing agents. What are they doing? And I would talk about the business and how they're getting leads and how they're doing this and how they're running open houses. And inevitably, the conversation would always circle in the end to Lawton. I'm 60 years old. I've been an agent for 40 years and I own 3 houses. And one of them was my wife's aunt died and we inherited it. The other one was a buddy that I helped out who they didn't actively pursue real estate investments all along the way. And they're looking back on a 40-year career and they're still sitting open houses on Sundays, showing houses on Saturday mornings. And they like a hand, 7, 8, 10 people all told me separately the same thing. I wish I had I spent my entire career helping other people build wealth in real estate and didn't do it for myself all along the way. And
yeah. I mean, it's like being a financial planner and not planning your own finances. Like we have access to the information. We're realtors. We help other people pursue their dreams, whether it's buying their one lifelong home or the opportunity of acquiring investment property. We have access to that, and we need to take advantage of it and execute.
Well said. So we talked about the biggest lesson that you learned. Tell us about the biggest mistake that you think you've made, or I mean, I know it's kind of on the spot to look back on 25 years.
Other than hiring you?
Other than hiring me 7 years ago, yes. That was you as an agent. What's the biggest mistake you've made as an investor?
As an investor? I don't want to say partnerships are tricky, but they can very well be tricky. They are, sometimes advantageous, sometimes not. I've been in several partnerships, and a lot of them thankfully have worked out.
Sure.
So I would just say, choose your partner carefully.
Yeah, and that's been a common theme. I mean, there's no real agenda on the show. It's not very strict here. But it's guided. There's a cadence and a rhyme and a reason. And I always ask, the biggest mistake, the biggest lesson that you learn questions. I think it just unveils and can lead into so much. And multiple of the guests that we've had have said, be wary of partnerships. It can seem awesome, and it seems like 1 + 1 = 10, but a lot of times 1 + 1 = 0. And, for every one partnership that works out, there were 9 that should have never even happened. But, for whatever reason they did at the time. So no, that's without divulging details. I would never ask, of course. What do you think stands to make a partnership mutually beneficial and long lasting? What separates the ones that work from the ones that should have never even happened?
I think, to your 1 + 1 = 10 is a good analogy. You have to have 2 people that have similar interests, but each bring something unique to the partnership. If you've got 2 people who are both hands-on and want to swing hammers, then you're going to have to find somebody out of you 2, or somebody a third, that's going to do the books, or vice versa. So I would say you need different skill sets, but moving in the same direction to accomplish the same goal. And, hopefully you've got a little bit of history on the person, know them personally, ethically, outside of, whatever business relationships you have. I think that's, that would be a start of a decent recipe.
Yeah. I think designating clear roles from the very beginning has been the downfall of partnerships that I've had just in my short career so far, but have also been the upside and the main benefit, and the reason that the other ones have worked out so well. Everybody at the beginning of a partnership is woo-ha, gung-ho, this is going to be awesome, let's go make our millions. And you start in New York, and if you start in New York and one of you thinks you're just going to Chicago and that's the journey, the other one's trying to get to LA, it's going to be really, really awesome. Then you're going to get to Chicago. And then one of you is going to be like, whoa, we're good, we're stopping. The other one's going to want to keep going. And that's you have to define, beginning with the end in mind, and defining those rules in the beginning only lives to serve everybody better all along the way. And if you can't get past that, if you can't nail that down in the beginning, you cut your ties, cut your losses, and move on, because that's a recipe for disaster when you get to Chicago.
Yeah.
Theoretically, to Chicago.
Yeah.
So zooming in more on your business particularly, what kind of properties are you buying? Why are you buying that kind of properties? Is that different than what you've done in years past? Why is it different? If it is, do you see something coming? Do you like a different asset class? Just talk to us about where your business is right now, where it sits, what your holdings look like, and then where is it going?
So 20 years ago, when I started acquiring real estate, they may have been kind of a B, C, lower level, something that I could force the equity and the appreciation over time. Over the last couple of years, with the pandemic, interest rates, supply and demand, I've actually switched my model into more of a flipping model. So acquiring more flips only because the market right now will support that.
Sure.
And the investment properties that I would have bought or would be interested in, the prices on those are inflated. So it's that balance of kind of sitting on the sidelines, but still being in the industry and still, generating a source of income and helping others along the way.
It's a pivot.
Yeah, it's absolutely pivot. And that's what makes real estate so great.
Yeah, I mean, it's all still in residential. It's all still the same neighborhoods. It's the same house you would have bought to keep as a rental. Your exit strategy is just different because your acquisition price on it is a little higher than it would be to make sense to keep it as a rental. You might as well capitalize on the state of the market and what was 6 months ago, historically record low interest rates, and get them sold to first time buyers.
Yeah. And that's what makes real estate so great. Yeah. Because you can pivot and your exit strategy can be completely different. Like you run a real estate business that's completely independent and different from mine.
Yeah.
And we can both be successful and never compete in those industries. And sometimes we've even served each other.
Absolutely.
That's really what makes real estate unique.
That's my favorite thing about it is the different exit strategies. And like second place being the leverage, first place being, if I want to keep it, I can. If I want to sell it, if I want to wholesale it, if I want to Airbnb it, I can rent to own it. I can subject to. There's so many avenues. There's not one right way to make money in real estate. It's what works for you based on your expectations of your return on your capital, your time, your energy, your effort, your risk, all of that factored in. It's really, I almost said you can't lose. You can. I have. Everyone has. It's really, really, really hard to lose. Something catastrophic has to happen, or a contractor has to steal $80,000 from you, or a partner has to F you over on the back end. I'm not speaking from experience or anything. There's so much that can go right passively. You have to actively try, or something has to actively happen for you to mess up owning a piece of real estate.
Yep.
So everyone that's on the show, all the guests that we have, they're strategically picked, for different perspectives, different avenues in the same real estate sphere, industry, investors, agents, appraisers, lenders, all kinds of walks, but all tied back into real estate. The one thing that all of them have in common, other than real estate, is that they've reached a significant level of success. They're doing very well in their business. They have done well. They've ramped up. They've scaled. They've reached a point in their business where other people want to hear from them. People want to learn from someone like that who has reached the mountaintop, so to speak. What makes you great? Why do you think you've been able to go over the last 20 years from zero to X amount of doors that you have and X amount of passive income that you have now, and the ancillary businesses that you've built off of that? What makes you so great? Why did you do it and so many others didn't?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying I'm great. I don't think I'm great. I think I've just been able to withstand several storms, and the way I've been able to withstand those storms is just because of the diversification of the industries within real estate. The property management piece, the investment piece, the buying and selling for conventional homeowners. Because not all of those necessarily are firing on all cylinders at all times.
Sure.
And when one is lacking, I've got the others to kind of pick each other up. When when inventory levels in the real estate sales market are down, people are renting, and those prices are increasing and vice versa. So I think just being able to diversify within that is what's allowed me to withstand many storms. Back to the mortgage demise back in 08, 09, I wasn't impacted, even though those were my first years in real estate, because I was acquiring investment property through that period. So I didn't even know that this world of lending and real estate was crumbling around me, because I just had my head down and was acquiring investment property.
Sure.
So, there's been several different cyclones of things that have happened since then within each of those different industries. But I think just having that tripod has really helped.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's, I mean, you won't say it. I did. I mean, that's what makes you great. So many others would have gone too deep or too narrow or been too dependent on one right out of the gate and would have waited down the road to diversify after they had, passive capital to put into it. Because a lot of people think the only way to diversify is with a capital investment, not with a time investment or an energy or an effort investment or a building a business investment to have other avenues. They think, okay, I'm going to make all this money in this one business or this one line of business, which you've essentially done. It's not like you went and started a bakery and a restaurant and you were buying rentals. It was all self-serving. It was all to feed each other. It was all residential real estate all the time in one form or fashion. Agent, property management, investing for yourself. A lot of people would have just tried to make hay while the sun shine and tried to do it all in one business and would have had to pivot in a very different way at the same time when you said, okay, I'm still going to be buying rentals. This doesn't really impact me. They would have had to pivot and change their entire model as an agent, whether they would have had to go and become an REO agent and start working with banks if they were just an agent at the time and the world's melting around them. If they don't have another option, they've got to either stop in their tracks and start building an investment business, like we talked about earlier in the show, where you got to put yourself in the position to see those things coming, that when they do, you can execute on them and move on them very quickly. They would have had to stop in their tracks and do what you've been doing for 2, 5, 10 years at that time. And, that's an insurmountable gap in a time of opportunity. So that, to me, I think one of the things that has made you and others, that have executed over the course of 2 decades or more in the same line of business and have seen market shifts and market changes and different demand for different things in the marketplace, and you've seen the trends come and go and neighborhoods rise and fall, and have been able to withstand and kind of play real life Monopoly, move things around as needed to best serve your business. And I think that's what makes you and a handful of other guests we've had on the show really, really savvy investors and great business people.
Thank you.
Of course. Do you see any of your strategies changing in the next 6 to 12 to 18 months? Where are you going? What do you see coming? And why are you making those changes?
Internally, I think with each business, we're still trying to define and fine-tune processes and systems, just making everything a lot more economical, a lot more efficient. So that's really what we're working on internally within each of the businesses. As an investor, kind of piecing these out. As an investor, I would say, looking at different opportunities. I like the multifamily, or at least trying to get things that are maybe in the same footprint of area, things that I haven't done in the past. If it was a good one-off property individually, it made sense, then I would acquire it.
Sure.
So now just trying to find different opportunities within similar areas.
Of where you already own?
Potentially, yeah, or new areas.
Gotcha.
And then real estate sales wise, similarly, yeah, just defining those processes, reverse engineering things, making sure that the outcome we want is what we want for all parties.
Sure.
And the property management, but I've spent a lot of time on getting that pretty fine tuned.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen behind the curtain of the property management company for years, and it's a machine. There's a reason that when I bought my first door, self-managing never even crossed my mind. I saw what property management looked like behind the scenes every day, and I ran as far away as possible from tenants and toilets. So talk to the audience here, talk to our listeners. Why on earth did you start property management company?
For me, it was, I was servicing myself as
Sure.
As a real estate investor, and as a new agent, not really having any income other than my own investment properties. That was another source of income for me, was that property management piece.
Sure.
And I was handy enough, so I was the leasing agent, I was the maintenance guy, I was the showing, I was all of those things, but I was compensated for it. And then that, lent itself to filling a void that, like yourself, I mean, it's a very thankless job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of people that want to do that, because you have to get into a very high volume before it really makes sense for
Economically.
it to make any money.
Sure.
So just filling that void, that niche, and doing things that other people did not want to do.
Sure.
And I didn't mind it, because it was a transaction. It was all about a transaction for me and helping others.
So was it, then I know that your perspective and the answer on it has probably changed over the years. Maybe it hasn't. Was it ever something you were building to sell? Was it ever something that you were building to say, okay, at some point, I'm going to have enough money as an agent from these clients I'm servicing that I'm not going to have to do this anymore? Or like, I guess, was it a means to an end, or was it something you always saw yourself building and scaling and owning and operating? Like, did you have a passion for owning and operating a property management company?
I'd say the latter. Yeah, I never
Really?
thought that I would get to a certain level and be like, okay, I've got it here to now this property management company is marketable for sale. Let's go ahead and pitch it. So that's, I can't say never,
Sure.
but I can't say not now. I mean, it's nothing that I've considered.
But when you started it 20 years ago, you're like, okay, I can do this for a couple of years until I get my feet off the ground as an agent and start making money on commissions, where, I just made 30 grand last month selling houses, but I'm still dicking around with tenants and toilets on the side. Like, where was the trade-off? Where was that? Like, was it always something you said, okay, I can't wait to build this up and start hiring someone to do it? Or was it like, God, I can't wait to stop being a property manager?
No, I think for me, it was building it up to a point where it was scalable, because I can't be, I would literally be going to show houses to clients that are interested in buying a home after I just got done doing plumbing or electrical at a renovation. So, it wasn't uncommon. I'd have to cut out of there, maybe go home and shower, depending on the client, go show the house, so that wasn't the best use of my time. So getting the property management company to a level to where it could afford to pay employees was really the goal. And now day to day, it runs and operates mostly without me. So it's got great employees.
I see it. I mean, I see it all the time. It's an impressive thing to behold. It is quite the business that you built. And I mean, from the outside looking in at it, I can respect it. As an owner that you guys service and manage properties for, I can respect it from two completely different perspectives. I see it behind the scenes with you, and just being around the people and the staff all the time, because they've been there from the beginning. And then now, over the last couple of years, seeing the other side of it as an owner, it's like, damn, this thing just hums and it runs. And I've always been impressed with what you've built at Wichita Rentals. It's a machine.
Yeah.
It's a
We've
machine.
got great owners, great vendors, and great employees.
Absolutely. So what's your in closing here, because we need to let you go. What's your best piece of advice for a new investor? They just got started. Maybe they're looking for their first deal. They've bought their first one or two. They're kind of dipping their toe in, but they're doing it. They've taken the leap. They're doing it. What's your best piece of advice to him or her?
My best piece of advice would be to have a goal in mind or a vision, some sort of trajectory. Is the goal to get one or two? Is that what satisfies your financial means, or are you wanting to scale that up? And then within that question, if you scale it up, what does it look like for you personally and professionally? Because once you get to a level of inventory, a lot as you've experienced, that you don't want to be a property manager. There's things that you're going to have to sacrifice. Is sacrificing some of the cash flow for a professional property management company to take over, so you can have peace of mind and nighttime sleep and weekends at the lake. Those are things that you need to consider. What is the goal? You bought one or two properties now, but what are you willing to give up later? Is it your time? Is it your money? Or is two enough?
Yeah, and to that point, any of our students or anyone that's just asked me, think about, getting started with rentals. Did you self-manage? Why didn't you? Like, I think I'm going to do it. Like, yeah, 10%, that's great. I'm like, dude, you got a $900 a month rental. If $90 a month is the make or break on that deal, run. Do not buy that house. Do not do that. If you're running your numbers and the only way it makes sense is for you to self-manage, please God, run. No, do not buy it. You are a leaky faucet and an HVAC issue away from losing money for an entire year.
Yep.
If you're talking about $90 a month being the difference.
Yeah,
so,
they say if you can't afford the property management, you can't afford the investment.
No doubt. No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think it's expensive to hire an amateur or to hire a professional, hire an amateur.
Yeah. But I also say this, that for you to appreciate property management and what property managers do, you need to get out there and see what it's like, showing the properties weekends and evenings, taking the phone calls when something happens, trying to get a hold of a tenant who's unresponsive when rent's due. Those are all the things that you're going to be faced with as a new investor / landlord, that property management. So if it's $900 rental, they would have done all that for the $90.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's
$90.
Yeah. I mean, no skin off the deal.
Right. So it's interesting, just the, but it also has to work out economically for each individual investor. Sure. And if the only way you can make it work is to do it yourself, and you're going to give up your day job to do this full time, then by all means, that works for some people.
Right. All right. So switching gears a little bit, final question. What's your best piece of advice for someone on the fence? We just answered the question for the person who has already made the decision. They've already bought one, or they're actively looking. They've made the commitment to do it. What about for the person the step behind? They're on the fence. Do I do it? Do I not? What would you tell that person?
I would say ultimately do it, but be prepared. Have all of your lending or financing in order. Ask the right questions.
Well said. You heard it here first, folks. Ask the right questions. Get your shit together and have your ducks in a row. Tyson, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we dip out?
No, I think this was great, Lon. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate your time. I know that our listeners will appreciate your insight and years of experience. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
They could call me direct.
I'll put your number in the show notes.
Okay, sounds great.
Fantastic. Lon. Tyson, thank you very much. Thanks to anyone who's listening today, and stay tuned for a new episode dropping next month. And Tyson, thanks again.
Appreciate it, guys.